Welcome to the Brodart Tell Me More Mystery Webinar. We want to thank our sponsors, Sourcebook and Macmillan. We're really excited to have you join us today. We have two amazing authors that have both written trilogies, and we're going to start with Darynda Jones, and Darynda is going to talk about her new book, obviously. She is a best-selling author with the New York Times and the USA Today, and she also received a Golden Heart and Rita Award for her manuscript, First Race on the Right. We're so excited to have you here today, Darynda. Please go ahead and start talking about your book or books.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I can't believe I'm here with Eriq La Salle. I'm kind of freaking out. So, this trilogy was a little bit of a divergent, a little different than what I normally write. I normally write paranormal mystery. My first series that sold was paranormal mystery, and then I have young adult, and then I have another paranormal mystery series that's totally separate. And so this one was a little different, and it came about because my agent and I were talking about what I was going to do next. I finished the Charlie Davidson series, which is a 13-book series, along with multiple novellas. And we were just trying to figure out what I was going to do next. So we were on the phone, and we had 2 or 3 conversations. And I was just coming up with, I have hundreds of ideas, but I was trying to think of ideas of things that she thought that the direction she thought we should go. And I went through everything, absolutely everything. We had 3 conversations and I had nothing left to pitch. She was like, oh, I like that, but that's not really what I'm looking for. And I like that, but I don't think that's quite right. And so I was getting a little worried. Last phone call, we were calling my editors the next day to pitch the new series, and I got to the last one, and she was like, no, that's not quite it. What else do you have? And I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. Like I was in panic mode. And I remembered something that I had come up with years earlier off the top of my head. And I just said, okay, I have this series about a female sheriff who has a teenage daughter, and, the hijinks will ensue. And she's like, I love it. Small town, New Mexico. And she was like, I'm there. I'm so there. And I was, oh, okay. And she said, so tell me more about that. Well, that was all I had. That was it. So the notebook that I had been writing on, it was at the very bottom, there was some print, and it said something like Sunshine Press or Sunshine Printing. And I said, so I just made stuff up as I went. And I was like, oh, well, her name is Sunshine. So that's how I came up with her name, in case you're wondering. And I just made it up as I went. I said, she has a teenage daughter, and she didn't mean to get elected. Her parents got her elected, probably illegally. We don't really know. And it goes from there. So all of my books are comedy. So they all have mystery, but they're also comedy. And so I knew that by setting it in a small town in New Mexico, I could bring in all of the characters and just have a really fun and dynamic situation for Sunshine she's forced to go back to her hometown that she did not want to go back to. And that's how it came about. So that's it. So they're mystery. It's only a trilogy. And I had an amazing time writing them. What I love about this series, and the reason why I normally write in first person, I wrote this series in third person so that I could have both Sunshine's point of view and her daughter Ari's point of view. So in every book, they each have story arcs, and they each have their own lives and what's going on. And then of course they interact and play off of each other. And Sunshine is a fantastic mom. She would probably never win Mom of the Year, but she is a good mom. She has different parenting styles than probably most moms, but that's what the series is about. And I made up the town. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted like a touristy town. I wanted enough stuff where there could be enough crime to keep everything interesting. Not that you don't have crime in small towns, but I needed a little more. And so I made it kind of touristy. we kind of combined, if anybody knows anything about New Mexico, I took Taos, New Mexico, made it a little bit smaller and plopped it right into Pecos, New Mexico. So it's where Pecos is. It's right on the Pecos River, and that area is absolutely beautiful. It's very near Las Vegas, New Mexico, so very mountainous, and Santa Fe is nearby as well. So just a beautiful area. So it was fun. It was fun. I got to make up the town and the characters and all the things.
You use the terrain in a really good way as far as the murder and how the body is found. You also do a really great job in expressing the young girl, she's 15, and then the mother and the different relationships and how smart the young girl is and how she uses all technology that's around today as a teenager would, and a crush on the boyfriend. You really bring those personalities alive.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun writing them. I always wanted to write, and this is probably may get me in trouble, I don't know, but I love the Gilmore Girls. And I love the relationship between the mom and the daughter. And I always wanted a series with that kind of relationship. So that's what I got.
And you do a lot of research, like you have the police department involved. What kind of research are you doing when you're creating and beginning the characters? We know the research you did in creating the actual beginning idea, but how much research did you do?
That's the thing, is that this was off my beaten path. And so I had to be much more careful. She was a real law enforcement agent as opposed to what I normally have. Like, I'll have a private investigator, but my private investigator will have supernatural powers, so I have all this paranormal stuff I can rely on. So with Sunshine, I really had to buckle down, get the facts right. I did tons of research on all kinds of, even like search and rescue with dogs, like how does that go about? I have a wonderful friend that I went to high school with. She is actually married to our local sheriff. So I would get on the phone with him and I would say, okay, so she's got to shoot him in the head, but he can't die yet. Can we do that? And he's like, yeah, you can. You got to kind of do this. And he was awesome. He helped me out a lot. So I did get a lot of help. And I have a few other friends who are in law enforcement, and I would ask them bunches of questions. But I found it really fascinating. A lot of the research that I did, especially with the dogs, search and rescue, how that comes about. I just thought, okay, she's the sheriff. She just calls search and rescue. And they come and search and rescue. Yeah, it didn't work that way. Many more steps are involved and many more people. And you have this person with that role and that person with that role. It was very interesting. I had a very good time doing all the research.
And what separates the 3 books? You have the main characters.
Right. It's all the same characters. Basically, there's a different mystery in each one. And then you have the overarching mysteries as well. And especially with Sunshine and her background, she has kind of a dark past, what happened to her in the past, and how her love interest was involved in that. And so, yeah, so that all comes out as the story goes on.
So it's a good idea to read them in sequence.
I would, yeah.
Okay. And do you have a favorite part of any of the 3 books? Is the last one your favorite? There's a little romance that goes on. Is there something that you look back and think, I really like that part?
Well, I love all of my characters. I think we all fall in love with our characters. Eriq can probably attest. And there was one part in book 1 that I didn't know if I could pull it off. It's always the things I don't know if I can pull off, but in my head it sounds good, And I pulled it off and I was really happy. And it's this one scene where each paragraph goes between the different points of view, and it creates this very dynamic, basically the same thing at the same time is happening to the mom and the daughter, but in a very different way. And I meshed their 2 points of views. And that was really, I was so happy I could pull that off. I was, okay, that worked.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was lighthearted in a lot of ways, and I think that the mystery's good. You kind of figuring out who the bad guy is at certain points, but then you jump to another conclusion. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else, or should we move on to Eriq?
We can move on. I'm sure everybody wants to hear from Eriq. So let's go to Eriq.
Oh, we do have a question, so let's see.
Oh, okay.
I think I speak for any Charlie fan when I ask you if you've gone any bites yet for the Beep Osh story.
Deep in Osh. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So basically, my agent and I, again, we decided I'm going to do one more trilogy. And it's going to be very much along the lines of Sunshine. And there's no paranormal. It's going to be a straight mystery with the comedy and the sexy times, you know, my usual stuff. And then we're going to go to Beep and Osh, which will be for those who don't know, that will be a spinoff from my Charlie Davidson series that my readers, whom I love with all my heart, they have been waiting very patiently for several years for this. So I promise it is coming, I promise.
And then the next question to you is, if your latest book was the subject of a book club, what question must be asked? Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
So if your latest book was the subject of a book club, what question must be asked?
Like from the book club? I'm not sure I understand.
I would say if the question worded a little differently, but I would say the question to be asked would be the relationship with the mother and daughter, how it works.
True. Yes, that would be a good one. That would be a good one.
Sorry, I'll for you.
What is your favorite drink? Because clearly alcohol plays a big part in these. And I don't even drink.
All right, so Eriq La Salle, we're so excited to have you here. You will know Eriq. He's an actor, director, producer, and author. He was raised in Hartford. He lives in Los Angeles now, and he writes about a murder mystery series that takes place in New York. And you know him from, I know you know him from a lot of different things, but most recently Chicago PD. So Eriq, I will hand it over to you. We're so excited to have both of you here.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm super excited to be here. And it's great to be with Darynda. Love your personality. So thank you. Yeah, I pride myself on being a storyteller. And what I mean by that is, from the time I was 14, actually before 14, at around 10, I used to have dreams of being a writer. And then that kind of sort of got pushed on the back burner once I discovered the acting bug. And so I auditioned I was a freshman in high school at 14 years old. I auditioned for a play. I had this fantasy of possibly writing a play that they would perform. And they were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We need you to audition for the play, which was Raisin in the Sun. So it was, a great play. And then that, the acting bug bit. And so I just, had this wonderful opportunity to tell stories as an actor. And then that eventually led me to directing, which is another way of me telling stories that led to me executive producing. And so when I was on ER, I started following a lot of the crew members, the director of photography. I started asking a lot of questions. I started going to the set even on the days that I wasn't working. I started staying later than after, once my scene wrapped, I would stay and just really observe. So that's how I learned about filmmaking. And then I became an executive producer on Chicago PD, which I ran for 3 years. And so I had this amazing access to technical advisors, to cops, to, how is this done well? Because, my appreciation for technical advisors started with ER because we had professional doctors that were showing us how to look like real doctors. And I worked with surgeons, and so I really respect authors that really do the homework and really get the technical advice, because we could think, oh, this makes perfect sense, but a professional will be like, that would never happen. And so sometimes people get lazy and they just write because it makes sense to them, but they don't know that it would never happen that way. So but that was, you know, a foundation for me. My desire to write this genre, I think, started several years ago. I produced and starred in a TV movie based on John Sanford's character, Lucas Davenport, out of the Prey series. And although the character wasn't written as African American, I played the character. I had a great time with it. I love the edge. I love that story. And I think that kind of introduced me to my desire. I like all stories. I love romance. I love dramas. I love thrillers. I love comedy. If it's a good story, I love it. But I think that started pushing me in that direction of, wow, I like having people on the edge of their seats. I like that. I like what's going to come next. I like the suspense. I love, how people get caught up. So I started writing this series. And I draw from everything, every piece of experience that I have. So as a person coming from the entertainment industry and coming from the film and television side, I incorporated, for instance, my love for the movie Seven. So I incorporate favorite films and say, I'd like to try what kind of story could I come up with that involves that. And so I read this really interesting article. This is what sort of moved everything forward. Just recreationally, several years ago, I read an article that was talking about how all of Jesus's disciples were brutally murdered. And it was something that I didn't know, and a lot of people don't know, and it's not technically in the Bible, but a lot of biblical scholars discuss it. And even if you Google how were Jesus's disciples killed, there's like pages and pages, and they were beheaded, they were crucified upside down, because some of them didn't feel that they were worthy to die the same way that Jesus did. They were torn limb from limb by horses. They were stoned to death. They all died horrible deaths. And John was put into a vat of boiling oil, somehow miraculously survived, and then was banished to the Greek island of Patmos, where he wrote the book of Revelations. So John is the only one to, after surviving a vat of boiling oil, he's the only one to die a quote unquote natural death. So I was like, wow, there's something interesting here. I don't know what it is yet, but there's something interesting. So I marinated on it for, I don't know, a couple of months. And then I came back and said, wouldn't it be really cool to have a modern day serial killer who is killing his victims in the same manner that Jesus's disciples were killed? So I had this, that was the story. And in some ways I came up with the antagonist before I came up with the protagonists. And so I had that. And so then when it came time to construct the heroes, I borrowed from my love of the movie Seven. And I put together this Irish, Italian, American cop teamed with an African-American cop. They are considered the best closers of cases in all of New York. They get all of the high-profile cases, and their record of closing is incredible. So in Seven, of course, we had Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. So I think in terms of what we call in my industry, castable characters. And so I wanted to come up with these dynamic characters, because I knew ultimately that the goal is to turn these into movies or television series, that I wanted to have these dynamic characters that are very castable. And so I came up with our two protagonists, and Quincy Kavanaugh, who is Irish, Italian, American, and Fee, who is his partner, who's African American, who used to be a NFL He used to play for the Giants. He was a safety for the Giants. So he comes from money. And the cool thing about Fee is that his father is considered the godfather of Harlem. His father was a criminal who then turned into like legitimate, but he made his money on some horrible things, and he still has that reputation, but he also now is a power broker. So I put these two dynamic characters together, and then I wanted to introduce a third character for full representation. So I wrote an FBI agent, a female FBI agent by the name of Janet Macklin. So a white female FBI agent who has been pursuing this serial killer that I came up with. And the mythology there is that this killer has been killing for several years, for 40 years. And what happens is it comes out every 10 years. It kills 12 clergy from different denominations, and then goes into hiding, and then resurfaces in another city and killed 10 years later, and then kills 12 more. So the 12, of course, represent Jesus's disciples, although Jesus ultimately had more than 12. But that's the symbolism there. So by the time, so the killer has killed in San Francisco, started in San Francisco, Chicago, Boston. So now it lands in New York, which is the backyard of our heroes. And so they team up with this FBI agent who has been chasing this killer for several years. And they're just hearing about this person. So the three of them become my series. Another thing I borrowed from my side of the industry is, there's this thing in repertory theater where you're doing multiple plays, and one night you might play Othello. The next night you might just play a smaller character in a different play. So I like that concept. So I wrote these books so that each of our protagonists would have their book. They would have, although all three are prominently figured into all of the books, one of them would have a very specific point of view. And so with the first book, Laws of Depravity, Quincy, who was raised Catholic, was molested as an altar boy. They are now investigating clergy that's being killed. So obviously he has a very personal connection. And we find out that some of the clergy are pedophiles, some are charlatans, some are crooks. So he has a very conflicted sense of, well, I was a victim, and now I have to, but I'm a cop, I have to protect the types of people that victimized me. So the first one is told more from Quincy's point of view. The second book, Laws of Wrath, becomes Fee's point of view, because some of the crimes that his father committed back in the day now come back to wreak havoc on the situation in modern day. So that's Fee's point of view. And then the third book, which is Laws of Annihilation, Janet Macklin, who is who's half Jewish, they are now investigating hate crimes and dealing with anti-Semitism because two rabbis are brutally murdered. And so each book has a different crime, but those are our protagonists, and they're told from a slightly different point of view, leaning more into one character, but all three prominently figuring into it. So we have two cops that are the best closers, teaming up with this really smart, cool, hardworking female FBI agent who actually has dreams of becoming the first female director of the FBI. So that's her goal. So we throw the three of them together, and they only go after high-profile serial killers. And so each book there's a different serial killer, but always doing something that affects our characters personally. And then the last thing I'll say is that the dynamic of these books is that I wanted to come up with something that was, a lot of times when you do thrillers, it's just like, okay, we have a bad guy, we have good guys. We know the bad guy is going to get caught by the good guys. So that's not the focus of my book. The focus of my book is the journey, because my books end up being a combination of a thriller, a spiritual quest, and a love story. So there's a love story for each of the different characters in all of the books. And then there is a spiritual quest. So for instance, Quincy, having been molested as a child, as an altar boy, struggles with faith. He doesn't really believe in God, even though his brother, who was also molested, is a priest. So Quincy doesn't believe in God, very indifferent. And so it is only through going through this journey, this horrible, horrible journey, that he sort of finds his sense of spirituality. Fee finds it in the second book and on his own terms. And Macklin, who is not as connected to her Judaism, ends up becoming much more, as she investigates these hate crimes, she becomes much more connected to her faith. So I wanted to write a series of books that went beyond the norm of most thrillers, because thrillers can become very predictable. And so it's really a question of, will our protagonists make it? It's not just will they catch the bad guy, but what will it cost them chasing this bad guy? How much of themselves will they lose? Though that's as deep a part of the mystery as will they catch the bad guy. So it just gives you these extra elements. But I like the fact that in one of the big reviews by Publishers Weekly, they said, it's a thriller, it's a spiritual quest and love story, all packed into one compelling story. So that's what I was going for. So I was really, really super happy to get that summary from Publishers Weekly, because that does really hit at the heart of what these books are about. So that's it. That's my.
Well, your writing is wonderful. It's very poetic. I'm actually listening to Laws of Depravity, and you're reading it. You're the narrator, and
Yes.
it's very, as tough as the subject is, it's very poetic. I mean, the way you write and the way you describe things. Also, you really, what you've explained today really goes into depth as far as each of the characters. You kind of feel like you're getting to know them. As horrific as these murders are, you're riveted about that, but you're also thinking, what are these two detectives that have very good relationships doing? And then you are getting into their heads as far as what are they hiding? What's going on behind the scenes? Very intriguing. I love thrillers, so I'm really enjoying it, but enjoying it more than I thought I would. And when you're talking about the aspect of the disciples, that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to have to look that up. So you are creating some curiosity there and some very interesting history coming from each one of them. And I love the way you describe New York and you describe the seedy areas and Staten Island. It's very, very, you feel like you're there.
Right.
Like you can relate to it. So I think it's really, you're on a good track. And this research that you've done is really amazing, using your acting and directing and that side of the world and putting it together, because I think you've gotten what you wanted out of it. Oh,
thank you. Yeah. Well, the goal is to be as cinematic. I like books that are cinematic, and I know there's this, you have to respect, and I'm relatively new as an author, but I completely respect whatever discipline I'm in. So when I went from an actor to a director, I had to learn the discipline of directing. And then when I made that transition into producing, and even though I'm doing things simultaneously, it's what does a producer do? How does a producer approach cinema as an actor? All I think about is one thing: my role. I come in, I do my thing. I might be in 1 out of 4 scenes. I get wrapped, I go home or whatever. But as a director, I'm there from the beginning to the end. So there's a different mindset. As a producer, the same type thing. So also now in respecting this new discipline, a relatively new discipline for me as an author, is really understanding how people love a good book. And if we're asking people to give up a day or 2 days or a week or a month of their, it has to stick. And I didn't want a book that I do a lot of reading, of course, as all authors do. I just didn't want a book that after you finished, you had no thoughts about it. It was just kind of a filler. It was just kind of, I wanted you to wrestle with things. I wanted you to do research on your own. I wanted you to go, oh, wow, I never knew that. Is that true? Like that's engagement, and that only heightens the story, but it sticks to your ribs more, which is exactly what I was going for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you succeeded.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I don't see any other questions from the, oh, there's a question. I'm so excited to get these books for our library. They sound very meaty. What are you marinating on your next book or book set? So what are you writing next?
Well, so this is not going to end as a trilogy. It was originally proposed as a trilogy. And so we did something really cool in Laws of Depravity. We do the book, and then at the end of the book, I added a novella, which is technically a prequel to Laws of Depravity. So you kind of see how the bad guy got started. You see a lot of things, but that's at the end of the book. So we have these 3 books. I have worked on another book because I also like, if I get a favorite character that just pops out, and sometimes characters fight for their lives and sometimes they fight for their own story. And so I had this really, really great minor character who makes him quick, and he's in 1 chapter in Laws of Depravity, and then he's in several chapters in Laws of Wrath. That's when you really get to know him. Well, this character is so dynamic. He's like Luca Brasi. He's like the Godfather. Like if anyone that's read or seen The Godfather, Luca Brasi was Marlon Brando's hitman, his protector, his right-hand man. So I've always been fascinated when I read The Godfather after seeing, it's one of my favorite films. I'm sorry, it's my ultimately favorite film. After I always wanted to create a similar character. So I have this character who's African, who serves that, but he became so dynamic and so rich that I actually just finished an entire book about him. And so that will be called The Laws of Solomon. And that will become, so I don't know how, and then I still, again, based on some stuff that I did with Wrath, and I left one character kind of dangling, that they might get their own book. So I say that to say, this is now gone from a trilogy to a full-fledged series. And I think I'll probably write about 6 of them, and then go on to something else. So that's what's next.
That's exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting. So I think, anything else that you want to share or that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I just got back from ALA in New Orleans, and I just wanted to say it was just so wonderful to meet the librarians in person and to do panels and dinners with them, and I thank them so much for what they do. And I know right now this country is going through some very, very strange things with censorship and banning books. And just my last thing for the librarians that's on. We see you, we respect you, we admire you, we support you, and it's a very difficult position that a lot of you guys are in. But just author, I'm sure I speak for Darynda as well. We love you guys, and we really support you guys, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing, as we do, of course, our fans and people that that validate what we do, because we dream of doing this, and to have an audience that says, hey, there's a place for your voice and I love your voice. So I just wanted to give some love and props to the librarians and to the fans of our different genres. And it's just so important. And Darynda's been doing this longer than I have, and at a higher level than I have. But I think that's the one thing that sort of connects all authors, is that great appreciation. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the somebody commented that, Darynda, your characters always love coffee. And then someone is asking, if your books go to become a movie, will you be able to hand off the screenwriting to somebody else? And I'm just going to ask the next question as well, so that you both can answer it. Let me just see it. Oh, and what are you two reading that you like? So those are the two extra questions.
So for Sunshine had actually sold to a very big company, and I absolutely can hand off the screenwriting. I'm not a screenwriter. I respect that is a very different form of writing, and I don't know that I could do it justice. I would love to give it a try someday, but it got through. They wrote the pilot. They started casting, and it was like really doing well. And then the higher ups said, no, we're going to pass. I'm like, oh, but that's the industry. I will say,
Welcome to my world.
yes, exactly. I will say also that Charlie just sold to don't know if I can say who yet, because it just happened, but just sold to a very big production company. So fingers crossed. That's her third time to be sold. She keeps selling. She sold to CBS and Warner Brothers, and now the third one. So fingers crossed that happens.
I know. What are you reading?
Oh gosh, I forgot. I am actually reading an older book called Rock Chick by Kristen Ashley. It is very good. She's an amazing writer. This is my first Kristen Ashley. I'm like, oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's our business. It's like you get close, and then all of a sudden it comes apart. One little bit of advice I would give you is to really push yourself to actually at least co-write your pilot, because one of the advantages that I have is that I'm in both worlds. And so people inevitably 9.5 out of 10 times will say, oh, the book was so much better than the movie or the TV series and whatever. And I think it's because authors give up their material and then trust people to interpret it properly.
That's me.
And so I just feel, actually, matter of fact, I have a production deal at Universal. I just got finished working with an author who had never written a screenplay. And she's a really cool book that I really liked. I brought it to Universal. They optioned it. And then she said she wanted to write it. So I supervised her writing, and I got to tell you, it was spot on. So don't underestimate yourself. I know it can be intimidating. I would just simply say, make sure if you align yourself, put yourself in that position, that you have just a good mentor and partner to oversee and work with you. But I would not rule myself out. If I were you, I would actually start really thinking about, because there's something so valuable about you knowing the heart of your characters, the heart of your story better than anybody. And that means something. That is of great value. And I, through my deal, I'm working, I option books. And so I have another book that we're working with, but I was really proud of working with the author of a book that was nominated for an Edgar Award. And she's just smart and hardworking. So don't rule it out. That's all I'm saying. So that's, yeah. I'm currently reading 2 books. Don Winslow has his latest trilogy. There are rumors that he's actually retiring after this trilogy. So he has a book called City on Fire. And so I'm reading that. And then I got an advanced copy of S.A. Cosby's latest book. I'm a big fan of his. And they actually, asked me to do a blurb. So I got this advanced copy, and it is so good. Oh my, it's so good. And so I juggle, I go back and forth. Any aspiring writers on this webinar, I just read up. That's the best advice we can ever give. Just read up, just be inspired by reading good material by good authors. It will inspire you. It will make you jealous. It will make you, sometimes I get angry at how good they are. I'm like, how could they come up with that? But it ultimately, it's out of just respect and admiration, and it does inspire. And so I like to, read. So I'm reading. So the one by Don Winslow is the first in his latest trilogy. So I'll go through that. I've read pretty much most of his books. I love John Sanford as well, and just kind of like to keep on my toes. And I keep saying I'm going to go back and read some Ayn Rand. I mean, I love her writing. Politics set aside, I love her writing. But yeah, so keeps me busy.
So this is for Darynda. I'm going to read exactly as it's written from Susan Clifton. I have had the good fortune to be related to your niece, Ashley's husband, Craig, and that is how I learned about your books. I also work at a library, so naturally I have read them all. And then someone else commented, thank you so much for shouting out to the librarians. She said, I also think they do a great job, but I'm biased. And then Eriq, as Kat stated above, I am so excited to hear about your titles. I just added these titles to my purchase list. So she loves, and for Darynda, she loves all of your books and have ordered all of them for their library. Thank you for opening your creative world to us. And thank you, Eriq, for the kind words you said about the librarians. Have you ever Zoom or FaceTime with book discussion clubs? That's something that's kind of becoming more popular.
Yes, would love to. Yeah, would love to. Yeah.
And I have downloaded your first book. This is for Eriq in audio, and I'm looking forward to listening to it. And Susan, you're going to love it if you like thrillers.
Right.
So this is great. We're getting a lot of comments, a lot of people engaging. So this is really fun. So thank you so much. And would you like to say anything else, or should we end the day? Up to you two.
Darynda, I'll give it to you. Take us home, Darynda.
I wanted to thank the librarians too. Libraries are my home away from home. I go there to read for quiet time. They mean so much to me. The smell, the atmosphere, everything. Love libraries. So thank you guys for everything that you do. I know you are heroes in my book, and some of my best friends are librarians. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, and to your publishers, Macmillan and Sourcebook, for having you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This is great. And you're right. We need to do more of the answer questions sessions where, that kind of stuff is just awesome to be able to, in real time, talk about questions. I mean, I love book clubs for that. So I love that type of stuff. And but thank you for this platform. This was awesome. And I had fun with you, Darynda. Thank you so much. You're just, well, who knows? Maybe you and I will end up doing a sitcom together or something. I don't know. So we'll do something.
And if you would, for those of you out there that you're interested in having a book club, send me an email and I will send it to the publishers, and you can buy their books at Broad Art. So thank you very much, and thank you for the sponsors again. And it was such a pleasure meeting both of you.